I'm deciding to bypass an introduction. I was doomscrolling today, and this video popped up. This girl, and I think she was referencing, I think, something either she heard or had read. And well, I didn't watch, not the entire thing that she had posted, or, it really grabbed my attention, and it kind of stung me a little bit, but it was, the main gist is, it was that insecure people are like some of the most selfish people. And some people are going to hear that and they're going to be like, yeah, that's okay. The reason it stung me, the reason that was my initial reaction, it's not like I didn't get full-blown offended or anything. It's just like because it does hold weight, it does hold some truth to it, and it really makes sense. I don't think that the idea, I don't want to say anything that comes across like I'm trying to say that insecure people are bad, or that, being insecure automatically means you're, I don't know, just a not good person or whatever, that, because the reality is that insecurity is one of the most human things. Like, I think it's something that everyone could collectively relate to, at least at some point in their lives, being insecure about something, about themselves or their abilities, their lives, or whatever. So being insecure it's not something that, should be villainized, but also it seems like it's gone in the opposite end today, in like today's world, where being insecure has almost become like an excuse, or like or people just get so comfortable with it, and that was me, that was my life. And I almost want to say that's still me in a way, but also because I've decided that's not how I want to be. I can't pinpoint an exact age as to when I noticed I was insecure. The best I could say is this, maybe around like my early tween years, like 10, 11, 12, because I know when I started middle school, for sure. So it was around that time I was definitely aware of it, or maybe not to, obviously not to the extent that I was as I got older, but I think that's definitely where it really was noticeable. And I think about that time of my life now, and I just, like, it kind of dawned on me that I was so against really, like, thinking about my insecurities, which were mainly my appearance, my family situation, and certain parts of my personality, I guess. So I took it upon myself. I decided that instead of I don't know, dealing with it or whatever, I decided to be the class clown, be funny. Being funny was my way of making up for all my other lackings. And so that's what I was known for a long time. I was known for being an idiot, but in a funny way most of the time. And as I went through middle school and then started into my high school years, there were a lot of factors in my life that were affecting me negatively. External factors. Still have those family issues. And stuff. But I started to notice that it was harder for me to hide my insecurities behind humor. And speaking of external factors, I don't know how I even neglected this, but I was in the end of my 8th grade year when COVID hit. And while it was an absolutely terrifying time and everyone was being affected by it negatively, I'm not going to even try to say my experience was worse or, compare it to anyone else's, but I mean, that is a point in my life that I will always look at and be able to say that was a really rough transition, because I went from being an already insecure middle school, early teenage girl struggling with, I had some good friendships. I had a friendship group, which was helping me deal with, or not deal with my family problems and underlying insecurities. But when COVID hit, went virtual for everything, quarantine, and there wasn't really much of an explanation at the time. There wasn't anything crazy that happened, but my friend group, those friendships that I was really relying on at the time, they dissolved. And that was really rough on me, but I couldn't name it at the time. I didn't want to admit how it affected me, because I was like, why would I, ew, emotions, gross. And yeah, from there, it just grew and grew, and I was spending so much time online, on the internet, on TikTok, that I was listening to, because a lot of people were online, obviously, at the time, especially, I definitely wasn't the only one. So TikTok especially had all this, advice or information, whatever, and that was not great for my mental health. I couldn't recognize it at the time because, everyone's on their phones, everyone's doing this, we're quarantined, there's nothing, blah, 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 blah. But I found myself definitely becoming dependent on the internet and other people's opinions, and I started living vicariously through other people, and it was just a really depressing time for me. So, just a depressing time in general. But all that to say, and then after that time, I continued through high school. It wasn't really up until maybe somewhere through my junior year I started to get a little more confident, but it was not much, and I was still adjusting myself, morphing myself into people around me to get attention, to get approval. The only thing I can really say when it comes to really feeling more like an individual, independent person was when I graduated high school, and it was really exciting. I was free mostly from an environment that I had a lot of trouble in, and I was a newly crowned adult. So, and it was, yeah, for sure. That time I really thought that I had a lot of expectations, a lot of hopes, and some of them did come through. But I was so caught up in college and working and stuff, trying to connect with people in a way that I'd never been able to before, that I wasn't really doing a lot of self work, a lot of insight. I think it would have been great for me to have been in therapy during or after COVID. After COVID, the timeline is a thing, but it just wasn't really possible for me. And I can't go back in time. I can't add it in there. I can't change anything. But as a new adult, you know, trying to figure out what I want to do in my life and working all these hours to be able to pursue whatever it would be, I started to grow a little more confident in certain ways. Like, I was able to talk to people easier. I had a huge fear of public speaking or just speaking to people. Social anxiety was my probably top 3 on the list of my enemies growing up. And being in a restaurant, working in a restaurant really helped with that. So I was kind of at a point where I thought I was pretty much okay. And then the start of 2025, I was still, working at the restaurant. I'd worked there for a little bit, and I started to notice certain problems, like with paying attention to things, and that my mood was not very consistent. So I went to a doctor's office, and I started new medications, and I started to accept that I had things that I needed help with, but they weren't the extent. They were only the tip of the iceberg, and at the time I thought that was all there was. I thought it was just the tip of the iceberg. I didn't think there was anything else under the water that I needed to deal with, is what I'm saying. And clearly that wasn't the case, because I started making videos about stuff that I kind of had to learn the hard way in the last since the start of January 2025, or it was maybe a little after, maybe February or March. No, it was definitely before March. Just the early part of that year. And all that to say is, insecurity has been a huge part of who I am, and I think a big problem. I think a reason that video, that person talking about insecure people often being the most, really selfish, it hit me deep because I realized that it was true for me. Not in the sense that I was, trying to ruin people's lives or trying to intentionally do certain things, but it made me realize that because I got so comfortable with being insecure, and I kept labeling myself with stuff like insecure and anxious and stuff, I was only contributing to a cycle of damage and a self-sabotaging kind of thing. And the selfishness part comes in because I say self-sabotaging, so it kind of sounds like I was only really hurting myself, but the truth is, when you're really insecure and when you're in such a headspace that's so negative and uncomfortable, yet you're comfortable with it because it's what you've known for so long. Suffering is comfortable, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, oxymoron, but when you have that kind of headspace and, you're so stuck in it, you're inevitably going to negatively affect or impact the people around you in some way. And I can't speak for other people's experiences, but I know the way that I've impacted people through that. So, it wasn't what I was expecting to pop up on my feed. A lot of my doom scrolling consists of absolutely ridiculously stupid memes, or on the opposite end, more like political activism stuff, which I'm very passionate about. So obviously, it's kind of a very diverse or, For You page. But when that popped up, I kind of just put my phone down for a second, and then I was like, okay, cool. Because despite how great therapy is and how I know that I'm making progress and stuff, blah, 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 with certain things each week, it's funny too, because a lot of the things that I've learned that have helped me didn't just come from therapy. It's like small stuff that just kind of pulled me out of my own head for a minute. And that was just one of those things. So, yeah. This feels like a much more concise way of saying what I wanted to say. Like 3 days ago, I was, in another parking lot, a Barnes & Noble parking lot, because I had just gotten a new book, the final book of the Bridge Kingdom series, which I've been reading like crazy to get out of my emotional turmoil. And, yeah, I'm not trying to promote anything here, but the Bridge Kingdom series by Danielle Jensen. I've read a lot of science fantasy books. I've read, just a good amount of books overall, as a reader. And, this series has helped me get out of a reading rut, and, like I said, it's also helped me deal with, painful mind situations. I don't know. But not even just that, because I don't want it to sound like I'm just saying it's good because it's comforting to me. It really is a good series, and the writing is great, the plot building, the world building is really incredible. I would honestly say, like, the plots and the world building is what really has kept me going with the series. It does have a lot of romance. It has a lot of adult-themed stuff, but it's not, at least in my opinion, it's not too much. It's easily you can skip over it for the most part, although she does sprinkle it in here and there, when it's not like those big scenes. But overall, it's not, I don't think it's overly heavy. I just skip over it for the most part. It's not my forte, really. But I really like it. So anyways, there's that. And, so yeah, I'm glad that I saw that. I'm glad I was doom scrolling today. But it's also kind of a problem because, I haven't looked at my screen time in a long time. I don't know if I want to, because I already have a lot to, I don't know. I probably should, but I know it's high, so maybe I can just, I don't know. Anyways. another car video. I tried to make it a little more I don't know, straightforward, straight to the point. So thank you for watching, and I'm looking around me. There's things going on, but thank you. I appreciate the view. And I hope you have a great rest of your whatever time of day it is. Thank you.